Welcome to Hope Natural Health, the podcast inspiring you to be your best version. Join me, your host, Dr. Erin, naturopathic doctor, dog mom, cancer survivor, and girl boss weekly as we discuss all things health, hormones, and happiness with a little side of this thing called life. Welcome back to the Hope Natural Health podcast. I am so excited that you're back, and here I am trying to get you healthy the right way. Last week we talked all about self-care, and today we're going to talk about what does sugar-free really mean? Sugar-free. It is literally on almost every label that you might otherwise think is healthy, but is it really healthy? Sugar really is the devil. Even though it is labeled sugar-free or no added sugar, please, I beg you, do not be fooled. It's so important for you to read the label when you see these claims because artificial sweeteners are not real food and they actually come with a lot of health concerns. And there's really hidden sugars in everywhere. So you can't trust everything you read, right? So that's why I talk so many times on this podcast about reading labels. So first we have artificial sweeteners, and these substitutes might seem like a good choice because they have 0 calories, but they can actually cause you to crave more sweets over these nutritious foods that they preach about. So ultimately, you're going to end up gaining some pounds, and it's likely due to inflammation and not having nutrient-dense foods with these 0 calories. I want you to eat. And if you missed my episode on macros, please go back and listen to it. It's episode 17, all about macros and why getting enough calories into your diet is super, super important. There actually have been several animal studies that suggest artificial sweeteners have an addictive quality, and they can cause brain tumors and also bladder cancer. I should probably read that again. There are several animal studies that suggest artificial sweeteners have an addictive quality as well as causing brain tumors and bladder cancer. So why is sugar the devil? Well, diets high in sugar can lead to chronic inflammation. And if you've been a patient of mine, you know that I always test for inflammatory levels because inflammation can lead to a increased risk of cardiovascular disease, also increased risk of diabetes. It puts you in that high risk category with inflammation. It can also lead to a weakened immune system, which makes you more susceptible to getting sick, which we all don't want to get sick right now, given our current world situation with all of these viruses and variants and all of these other things running around, and also, upcoming cold and flu season that's in the winter season. Increased sugar can lead to that chronic inflammation that also puts you at an increased risk of diabetes or insulin resistance, which therefore still puts you in that high risk category, and also an increased risk of cardiovascular disease, like I just mentioned. So all of these things play a role in your overall health. And even if it's deemed sugar-free, I highly guarantee it's not sugar-free. It's going to have some sort of fake sugar in it, whether that's sucralose, aspartame. I'm totally blanking on the other ones. But those sugar substitutes, what you want to look for are stevia or monk fruit. Those are acceptable and healthier sugar alternatives that don't have these side effects that we're talking about today. Did you know that one can of soda, like a Coke or a Pepsi, has 40 grams of sugar in it? 40 grams in one soda. And that's just a can. So most people are getting, a QT drink of like 32 ounces or 44 ounces or a Big Gulp, if those are even around, and they have tons and tons of sugar in it. So I talked in the macro episode about sugar bombs. And this is a great example of a sugar bomb. It's going to spike your blood sugar and then you're going to crash. And it's also empty calories. I recommend getting about 30 grams of sugar daily in your diet. And that's not, you're already going to go over that if you have a soda with your meal. That's totally putting you over. So sugar is found in fruit too. And even though it's natural sugar, that still can contribute to inflammation if you have a high sugar diet. or a high fruit diet, I should say. There are other sources of sugar that you can get, such as those energy drinks like Red Bull or even sweetened tea, coffee drinks like Starbucks right now. We're in pumpkin spice latte season. Like those have 40, 50, 60 grams of sugar, depending on the size, in one coffee drink. Cookies, pastries, candy, like the list goes on with how many things have sugar in it. So my best advice for you, which I've talked about so many times, is to read labels. I hope, if anything, that you've learned from this podcast is how to read a label, and maybe we'll go and do a podcast on that. I know Jillian from Millennial Nutrition is really good at teaching label reading, so maybe I'll bring her on about how to read a label and what all of these words mean, because I used to say, if you can't pronounce it, don't buy it. Like, you shouldn't eat it, shouldn't go in your body, but that's not entirely true, because there's some things that are labeled wonky names that we can't pronounce are actually good for you. So I will bring her back on to talk about food labels and how to read them properly and what to look for. But that is also something you can start with. You can read how much sugar's in it and go from there, because if something has a ton of sugar in it, I'm likely not going to buy it. Another good example that I want to bring up, which I buy a lot of, is yogurt. And yogurt, the fruit yogurt, is sweetened with upwards of 20 grams of sugar in one little canister of yogurt. Tomato sauce has sugar in it, barbecue sauce, ketchup, like so many things have sugar in it. So honestly, just go get your food, go to the store, buy it, look at the labels, and put it all together and see how much sugar you are eating. You can also track your foods, like I talked about in the macros episode, and see your, the total amount of sugar that you're getting in per day. That would be a good thing to check. But honestly, it's contributing to your inflammation. It's weakening your immune system, and it's not making you feel that well. So sugar is the devil. It is highly addictive, but yet so very unhealthy for you. So hopefully you learned something today. I would be curious to hear what sugar food you're ready to ditch. So if you want to leave me a comment, I'd be happy to read it. And we'll see you all next week.